Let's get this party started.
He's shining a light in the dark corners of our media.
You are fake news.
Our government.
Handling of classified documents.
And our culture.
I don't trust anyone.
It's common sense amidst chaos.
Let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome.
Here's your host, Ike Wingate.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to the show. It is so great to have you with us yet again as we dive deep into what is happening around our country and around the world, as we want to make sure that you are in the know about what is going on. We shine a light into the dark corners of our government, culture, and our media. There's always something to talk about when it comes to those things. So lots going on today. Of course, the headline today is Susie Wiles out. Some of you might be tuning in saying, wait a minute, who the heck is Susie Wiles? Probably not a lot of you are saying that, but maybe you've heard the name and you're wondering, who is that again? Well, it is the chief of staff for President Donald Trump. She's been sort of the difference maker this time, I would say. She is the daughter of former NFL player and commentator Pat Summerall. And she was instrumental in helping with Trump in Florida years ago, back in 2020. And she also did some things for Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis then since distanced himself from her. There was a falling out there for some reason or another. But she's been the chief of staff. Some have speculated, is she going to be the kind of loyalist that Trump needs, or is she going to be an undercutter like some other former staff members in Trump 1.0? The reason why the headline today is Susie Wiles out is because there's an explosive piece in Vanity Fair where she participated in the interview 11 times over the past 10 or 11 months, maybe longer. Whether it was in-person interviews with this guy or it was phone interviews, but she is on the record with quotes that might shock you. Now, is it everything they are portraying it to be? Susie Wiles is known as being sort of this calm, cool, collected person, this no ego kind of person. And of course, she's in the middle of the White House with a lot of strong personalities. Is this her way of sort of separating herself from the president? These are all questions you have to ask after this Vanity Fair article that's 2 parts and it's super long. I'm not going to say I've read through the whole thing because I've got other items to talk about, but we will get into that. The job numbers are out. We'll talk about that. Plus, we're hearing from the Treasury Secretary that tax refunds could be a little better this time around. So we'll talk about that. And the House says they're finally going to codify 150 executive orders from the president. They're going to finally codify them into law. Well, we've been waiting for a year. They've passed hardly anything this whole entire calendar year. Now, granted, the holdup in the Senate is certainly something to be aware of, but the House could still pass these things. And a lot of people have wondered what the heck have they been doing, including me. But we'll tell you what the Speaker of the House is saying. Elon is funding Republicans again for the midterms, Democrats and their Epstein photo blackout hoax. I mean, the desperation, you can smell it on Democrats regarding this entire Epstein debacle. And Candace Owens and Erika Kirk had a meeting on Monday. What happened with that meeting? What was it about? How did it happen? We'll talk a bit about that. We're still waiting on an update. Plus, Trump chimed in on Rob Reiner, director, actor, who was brutally murdered by allegedly his own son along with his wife. And we will talk through that subject. And the FBI, this is really probably the biggest story of the day. The FBI doubted the probable cause to raid Mara-lago. We've got that explosive story that we will bring you. We'll ask Seth Woodall, an attorney who's going to join us in the second hour, about that. And we see Islamic terror on the rise. Bondi Beach, the attack on our military in Syria, and we still don't know who the Brown University shooter is. They had a guy, and basically everybody found out everything about him they could, and he was a radical leftist, and it came out that, no, they released that guy. That wasn't him, and they put out pictures. Could this be a third Islamic-related terror event? Unfortunately, the VP of the Republican group, this young lady, was killed along with another young man, leading some to believe this was a target attack based on political beliefs. We still don't know. Plus, a foiled New Year's Eve terror plot. Joe Biden can't raise money for his library. Imagine that. Arkansas severs ties, the first state to do so, severing ties with PBS. Walmart, another story out of Arkansas here. This is where the show is based. Walmart removes food dyes. And junk food is no longer SNAP eligible, and Marjorie Taylor Greene is engaged. Oh, well. And we'll, of course, have our Triggered Liberal today as well. All right, here's where you come in. You can be like Bree. Bree is in the chat and says, hey, Bree has reposted the show. She's shared the show on her own social platforms. We need you to do the same. So you can give us a thumbs up and a repost or a share. If you're watching on X, heart this post and repost and interact in the chat. Let us know what you are thinking about what we're talking about. We always love to get your perspective on what is going on. And so those are the things we need for you to do. We need for you to like and share, repost, and interact in the chat. And if you want to support us financially, you can do that as well via Cash App or Venmo at IkeReport.com. We want to say welcome to our friends watching on the Right Side Broadcast Network, as well as our own streams on Rumble, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and X. First story, Susie Wiles. A wild story about Susie Wiles. Susie Wiles tweeted this out. The article published early this morning is a disingenuously framed hit piece on me and the finest president, White House staff, and cabinet in history. Significant context was disregarded in much of what I and others said about the team and the president as well. The things she said in context were left out of the story. I assume after reading it that this was done to paint an overwhelmingly chaotic and negative narrative about the president and our team, leading some to wonder, why did you give Vanity Fair this interview and a lot of access over several months? She goes on to say, the truth is the Trump White House has already accomplished more in 11 months than any other president has accomplished in 8 years, and that is due to the unmatched leadership and vision of President Trump, for whom I've been honored to work for the better part of a decade. None of this will stop our relentless pursuit of making America great again. Don Jr. has come to Susie Wiles' defense in a tweet as well, and saying she's by far the most effective and trustworthy chief of staff that his father has ever had. When Susie took over my father's political operation after January 6th, people forget how many Republicans were treating him like a pariah. Boy, is that the truth. That's when you really saw the true colors of folks, was after January 6th. It was just inconvenient to support Donald Trump at that point, but not for Susie Wiles. Countless operatives, he says, consultants, and elected Republicans thought my dad's political career was over and wanted nothing to do with him. They attacked him ruthlessly and predicted he would lose if he ran for office in 2024. But not Susie. She was a loyal fighter for him from the moment she came on board, when things were tough and other supposed friends left my dad like a bunch of rats. Susie stood by his side and worked her tail off every day to rebuild his political operation and ensure that his comeback in 2024 would be successful. When others cowered, she stood strong. One of the things I've appreciated about Susie is how she's never tried to subvert my father's America First policy agenda. She's an honest broker who only cares about executing my dad's wishes on policy, which is much different than how things were in his first term when countless staffers thought it was their job to rein in Trump. And he goes on and on and on. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I've read too much already. But this is the piece. This is not it. This is J.D. Vance talking about the piece. But the headline is Susie Wiles, J.D. Vance, and the Junkyard Dogs, the White House Chief of Staff on Trump's second term, part 1 of 2. So it goes through this timeline, but some of the notable quotes are that J.D. Vance is a conspiracy theorist and that President Trump has an alcoholic's demeanor or behaves like an alcoholic is what she said. Now, an alcoholic's personality. That's the direct quote from Susie Wiles. And that J.D. Vance has been a conspiracy theorist for a decade. Now, I'm going to key in on, you got all these people that are singing her praises that are interviewed, Rubio being among those. And the quote about the alcoholic, okay, is somewhere down here. Basically, she does talk about how President Trump has yelled at her, and she sort of said, hey, look, if you want someone who's going to do, tell you what you want to hear, that's fine. That's not me. But if you want someone who's going to win, I'm your gal, basically. And after that, they've been on great terms. So it's clear that Donald Trump respects people that are willing to stand up and know what they believe and, aren't afraid to say it. She talked about her father, Pat Summerall, being an alcoholic. He was sober for 21 years prior to his death, but she learned how to live with an alcoholic. Summerall was an absentee father. Wiles helped her mother stage interventions to get him into treatment. She said, quote, alcoholism does bad things to relationship, and so it was with my dad and me. She went on to say, some clinical psychologist that knows 1 million times more than I do will dispute what I'm going to say, but high-functioning alcoholics or alcoholics in general, their personalities are exaggerated when they drink. And so I'm a little bit of an expert in big personalities, okay? That's the context of the quote. Wiles said Trump has an alcoholic's personality. He operates with a view that there's nothing he can't do, nothing, zero, nothing. Did she say that President Trump acts like an alcoholic? You could say maybe literally she did, but the context of the quote is alcoholics, when they are drinking, have big personalities and think they can do anything. And President Trump has a big personality and has always been the kind of guy who will not accept defeat. Failure's not an option. He relies on very positive thinking and believes he can do anything. He doesn't see these obstacles as reasons that it can't be done. That's the context of the quote. But of course, Vanity Fair zeroed in on that and basically saying that President Trump acts like an alcoholic. You see how that works? Now, interesting quote, but her point is she's been dealing with big personalities and understands how to effectively steer and be there as a helpmate in that situation. Now, and she said something else about Vance. Let me see if I can find the exact quote. We often spoke on Sundays after church, blah, 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 blah. One time we spoke while Wiles was doing her laundry in her Washington, D.C. rental. She told me Vance's conversion from never Trumper to MAGA acolyte, she said, has been sort of political. The vice president, she added, has been a conspiracy theorist for a decade. Okay, that is just the quote out of context. Let's see here. Okay, how about this? Okay. Trump has claimed, this is Vanity Fair, Trump has claimed without evidence that Bill Clinton visited Epstein's infamous private island, Little St. James, supposedly 28 times. There is no evidence those visits happened, according to Wiles. As for whether there was anything incriminating about Clinton in the emails, the president was wrong about that. Now, again, we don't know the context of this. Now, as far as Clinton visiting the island, I have not seen evidence of that. There's plenty of evidence that he's flown on the Lolita Express several times, and it's possible the president could be mixing those two things up. The people that really appreciated what a big deal this is are Kash Patel and Dan Bongino as far as the Epstein files, because they lived in that world, and the vice president, who's been a conspiracy theorist for a decade, for years, Kash has been saying, got to release the files, got to release the files. And he's been saying that with a view of what he thought was in these files that turns out not to be right. That was a direct quote from Susie Wiles. Okay, so it gives you a little bit of context into the behind the scenes, which makes sense that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino were the ones saying we got to release the files, but they're also the ones that said there was nothing, to Epstein's mysterious death. So kind of as I said before, as these guys have been talking about it for a while, it's possible that they finally see what's in the file and they say, it wasn't what we thought. Now, a lot of people don't believe that. A lot of people are like, oh, well, they're now, they're covering for somebody. Is anything possible? Yes. Anything's possible. It just depends on whether or not you trust Bongino or Kash Patel. Dan Bongino is rumored to be leaving potentially at the end of the year, 1st of 2026. Maybe he's had enough. Maybe he's realized the system is it's too hard to change. I don't know. Or maybe the people he's working with are sabotaging. I really don't know. But those are things that are being put out there. So here's the interesting thing is Susie Wiles is out there saying things that contradict what the president has said. Even though she, as I read at the top of the show, went in through that, it's out of context and they're not really, giving us the whole story and blah, blah, blah. Is this going to spell the end for Susie Wiles, this Vanity Fair article? I doubt it does, but it certainly, I think, for the president would give him a little bit of question in his mind. Can I truly trust Susie Wiles because she said these things? Or President Trump may just say, I don't even care. I don't believe Vanity Fair. I believe Susie Wiles. But certainly she has said some things. We will see, because this article is super long. It's going to take a while for people to get through it. And so after they absorb this and extract some of these quotes and they read it for what it is, are they going to have some questions for Susie Wiles? Well, the vice president was asked specifically about this conspiracy theorist quote, and here's what he said.
From the Washington Post, it's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Same to you.
Unfortunately, I have to ask a bit of an off-topic question from affordability because news events do intervene, and that is the interviews that White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles gave to Vanity Fair, in which she's quoted as referring to you as, excuse me, and again, not my words, sir, but a conspiracy theorist of a decade, and described your transformation from someone who once opposed President Trump to now his vice president as an act of political expediency. And I'd like to give you the chance to respond to that, sir.
Well, first of all, if Susie, I'll trust what you said. I haven't looked at the article. I of course have heard about it, but conspiracy theorist. Sometimes I am a conspiracy theorist, but I only believe in the conspiracy theories that are true. Yeah.
Right? I mean, can we get an amen out there? We're all, conspiracy theorists. Well, it turns out most of them have been true. And except for whatever Candace Owens says.
By the way, Susie and I have joked in private and in public about that for a long time. For example, I believed in the crazy conspiracy theory back in 2020 that it was stupid to mask 3-year-olds at the height of the COVID pandemic, that we should actually let them develop some language skills. I believe.
What a conspiracy, right? What a tinfoil hat kind of thing to believe, huh?
In this crazy conspiracy theory that the media and the government were covering up the fact that Joe Biden was clearly unable to do the job.
We all saw it. We talked about it. The media ran cover. The Democrats lied. It's a big conspiracy. The president's fine. You guys are just looking for something to be upset about. We got some amens coming in. Yanni on YouTube. BC Jazz over on Rumble. Amen on the conspiracy theories.
And I believed in the conspiracy theory that Joe Biden was trying to throw his political opponents in jail rather than win an argument against his political opponents. So,
yeah, that is more true today than ever. We're going to show you that.
At least on some of these conspiracy theories, it turns out that a conspiracy theory is just something that was true 6 months before the media admitted it. And that's my understanding.
Hey, yeah. It's a great way to characterize
now, look,
this.
I do want to say something about Susie, though, because, again, having not read this article, Susie is a person I've come to know very, very well. And, a lot of you probably ask yourself, what is it like behind the scenes? What's going on actually behind the scenes of the Trump administration? And I'll tell you, the president is exactly in private who he is in public. Like, I'll tell you a little story. Maybe a week or so ago, I walk into the Oval Office and Marco and I are sitting there talking with the president about something. He says, stop. And he looks at our shoes and says, you guys have terrible shoes. So he goes and gets a shoe catalog. And remember, this is the Christmas season, so the president's got some holiday cheer. He goes and gets a shoe catalog and gets his favorite shoes and orders like 4 pairs of shoes for me and 4 pairs of shoes for Marco, because he's like, we need our vice president or secretary of state to look their very best. And, then we went back to talking about whatever major, international issue we were talking about. Again, he is exactly in private who he is in public. That's not true of most people in Washington, D.C. It's not. And I've seen so many people who will say one thing to the president's face, Democrats and Republicans, and then will do the exact opposite behind the scenes. You know why I really, you know what they are, and
a traitor.
Why I really love Susie Wiles, because Susie is who she is in the president's presence. She's the same exact person when the president isn't around. I've never seen Susie Wiles say something to the president and then go and counteract him or subvert his will behind the scenes. And that's what you wanted a staffer. Because as much as I love Susie, the American people didn't elect any staffer. They elected the president of the United States. And what you want.
That's right. And that's what a lot of people don't get is, no, we know better. Well, no, the people who elected this guy, if they get out of his freaking way, especially these judges, things would, be far more productive.
And what you want in a staffer is a person who understands they are there to effectuate the will of the American people, and they're there to follow the orders of the duly elected commander-in-chief of the United States. And Susie Wiles, we have our disagreements. We agree on much more than we disagree, but I've never seen her be disloyal to the president of the United States, and that makes her the best White House chief of staff that I think the president could ask for.
All right, so there you have it from the mouth of J.D. Vance. They don't agree on everything, but he says she's loyal. So we'll see how this article plays out. Interesting, though, that you sort of get a little bit of the dynamic behind the scenes. Like, just for example, with the Epstein files, J.D. Vance, J.D. Vance is keyed in on what people want because he's in the middle of it. Charlie Kirk was great about that, and he was an advisor in that sense. Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, also sort of in there on the, the finger on the pulse of what the base wants. And so, of course, Susie Wiles is probably more in a dignified, information loop, if you will. So you need all of these different types of people to come with the perspective of their world, because that's going to help you be able to understand what people are thinking, what people want, and the best way to execute some of these things. And sometimes you just have to do the right thing, even if it's the opposite of what all these people want. That's just the way it is in leadership. So you saw this in the first Trump administration, where they didn't hire the right people, and they basically didn't like how the president was doing things because it wasn't the way it's always been done. And so, you had this dissent that was sowed, this discord sowed internally, and then they, would be found out and fired, and then they would trash the president. It happened with several staffers. And so it hasn't happened really much at all with this new Trump administration. It's very buttoned up, tight, loyal, and effective. And so this is a sort of a newer phenomenon we're seeing with this administration. I don't know that it's actually anything. It's just, this is the first time we've seen someone go on the record and out of context being misconstrued to, say potentially some negative things. BC Jazz says the mainstream media is always looking for ways to insert distrust within the present administration. You're exactly right about that. So we'll see how this plays out. We'll see how this plays out. Of course, the Trump administration continues to get wins. 64,000 new jobs in the latest jobs report. Wages are up.
In November for the big jobs report. The only thing is, it's not Friday. Here we go. November's number comes in at 64,000. 64,000 on non-farm. And if we look at average hourly earnings, they are up 0.1% year over year, up 3.5. Yes.
All right. So you got good, decent jobs numbers, I would say, but unemployment, though, is technically ticking up overall. People say, well, it ain't that good if unemployment's ticking up. But here's the real story. Federal employment is at its lowest level since 2014. So yeah, there are some people that were working for the federal government that are without a job right now, and they are part of the unemployment numbers. So I'm telling you, this is quantity. This is quality over quantity. When I say quality, we don't have a productive capitalist system when our federal government employs so many people. And I will take the negative numbers, whatever they may be, even though we still have jobs being added, but they're being added to the right place, the private sector, not the public sector. And so look at the federal employment numbers. They have just continually dropped since President Trump got in office, and a huge drop after those, those periods for the severance dropped off after September. And so this is the way you actually build an organically healthy economy. You get people off of the government-funded jobs. You bring manufacturing back. You stimulate the economy naturally, and that is how you do it. And President Trump has laid the groundwork for all of those things. And, Democrats are trying to key on this affordability thing, which actually the numbers are the average American has $1,000 more this time, now versus this time last year. Now, it may not feel like that in every aspect, and I totally get that. The idea of prices coming down, typically that just doesn't happen unless there are, fluctuating price, industries, certain food items, gas, obviously. But we know that gas continues to come down, and that affects everything. So we should expect to continually see improvements economically and personally economically as time evolves here, as time continues, as we see progress into 2026 and beyond. And you're really starting to see those factors converge. And we're, obviously the stock market, and then you've got the tax changes kicking in, which is going to mean an extra $1,000 to $2,000 in refunds for most people. That's what Scott Besson said earlier, our Treasury Secretary. I'm having a hard time saying that for some reason. Take a look.
Maria, let's go back. The one big beautiful bill was passed on July 4th, but for working Americans, it was retroactive to the beginning of the year. Most taxpayers did not change their withholding. So as a result, we're going to see very substantial 100 to 150 billion of refunds in the first quarter go directly to Americans' pockets. So the sooner they file, the sooner they'll get them. Our estimate is it could be 1,000, 2,000 per household, depending on the number of workers.
Wow, that is a big deal. So, Secretary, you've talked about this additional money from the tax code that we're getting. You talked about the impact of the big, beautiful bill. It sounds like you think we're going to get a real economic boost for the macro story in the first or second quarter. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I think it's going to. They start lifting off in the first quarter and the second quarter. And, Maria, the other thing, when I started my career on Wall Street in the 80s, people used to focus on trade. Were we building more in the U.S. or were we importing more? We're seeing the trade deficit drop, too. So the trade deficit drop means more production in the U.S. So I think that's something that economists are going to have to start looking again, thanks to President Trump after 40 years.
Well, you're proposing a major shift now in how the government approaches financial stability.
Yeah, so that trade deficit is huge, and you're not hearing it talked about much. We talked about it last week, but the fact that we are now exporting more, and there's not this off balance where we're buying their stuff, but they're not buying ours. Okay, so President Trump is shifting that, and that's not something that happens overnight. Again, the guy hasn't even been in office for a year. I see this idiot in the chats, we knew nothing, saying, I don't know what I'm talking about. That's completely wrong. Where did you get your degree in economics? Well, you don't have to have a degree in economics to know how the economy works or how to be successful, okay? And so I've done it. I've operated a B2B business for a long time, founded the company, built it up, and sold it for a lot of money because through God's grace, I knew what I was doing and worked hard, and I understand how economics works. I understand how incentivizing works. I understand how removing regulation works. But you stay in your mom's basement and have a good time. All right, so I always love, fighting with a dumb troll. Now, codifying these executive orders is a huge part of what needs to happen. Otherwise, someone will just undo all these executive orders the next time they're in office if it's a Democrat. And I've been saying this for months. You must codify the executive orders. Bree says, here's to 2026 being a killer year. Absolutely. And let's see. Yanni says over on YouTube that if you had a staff that agrees with everything you said, you've just basically got a bunch of yes men and women. Disagreement allows for free thought and potentially positive change in policy and decision making. That's exactly right. You don't want a bunch of yes men. You want debate or discussion to happen inside of your organization. Just so long as someone just isn't a saboteur and just hates every idea. But I think you're exactly right. But back to codifying these executive orders, Speaker Johnson now saying that the House Republicans will surge starting in January to codify up to 150 of President Trump's executive orders. Aggressive affordability agenda and continued codification of the executive orders. That is what Mike Johnson said recently. It's about time. I want to believe you, Mr. Speaker. I really do. But things have not really gone in the direction as far as pace of productivity in the first year of this all Republican Congress and executive branch, that we wanted. And so there's a lot of catching up to do for the House and the Senate. A big part of that is going to be getting rid of the blue slip. J.D. Vance is now touting this, the single biggest obstacle to prosecuting violent leftist judges and prosecutors in deep blue areas who think violence is okay if you're a leftist. This is why you got to get rid of the blue slip process. It's an institutional safeguard that has long outlived its purpose. and it is time to abolish the blue slip now. We must continue to put pressure to do so. In an incredible development, Elon Musk is now funding Republicans for the 2026 midterms, according to Axios. So, as you've seen, Elon is sort of back in the fold in a lot of these different events and has sort of come to his senses, I think, that this is the best chance of saving our republic. And, of course, let's talk briefly as well. I'm trying to just get through multiple stories so we are ready to tee up our guest at the top of the hour. Democrats showed desperation when they were blacking out the faces of women and Trump in the Epstein files. Have you seen this? This is so desperate. I talked about it recently on Newsmax.
Kind of put on the back burner with everything else that we had been talking about. The latest release from House Democrats, the Epstein estate, the photos, of course, we've seen all of them. You had photos of Bill Clinton, you had photos of Bill Gates in there. Of course, you had photos of President Trump. And there's one photo that was circulating, but it's already been proven to be false. It's not from Epstein Island. It's from Mara-lago. He's surrounded by women, and that's because they were competing in a beauty pageant.
Imagine that. So they took a photo of Trump with beauty pageant contestants, which, by the way, he ran multiple beauty pageants. Back in my radio days, I emceed some of these pageants, and there were pictures taken. Does that mean I went to Epstein Island? It absolutely does not.
Which we know that Donald Trump had a long history with beauty pageants. There's nothing wrong. They blurred their faces, didn't need to. They're not victims. They were just competing in a beauty pageant. I believe it was Miss Hawaiian Tropic.
Yeah, imagine that. A guy who, runs these beauty pageants would be taking pictures with the contestants.
Mm-hmm.
I saw someone on the internet actually do a meme of this with the Golden Girls and Donald Trump with their faces blurred out and said, "Is this how it works when you're perpetrating a hoax?" So that's about that's about how much sense it actually makes when you blur someone out. Just like they did in the selective redactions of that email that we already had. So Democrats have discovered, or maybe they've just revealed to us, the art of deception that they are deploying inside these files that they're preying off of and hoping that uneducated or uninformed people will just jump to the worst conclusion possible. But when you see the side by side, you realize this is nothing more than a doctored photo, and it's ridiculous.
They wanted people to jump to conclusions, right? By blurring the faces, people automatically think, oh, they must be victims.
They got hours of coverage on it on the liberal networks before they got corrected. They got what they wanted. All right. Ike, Daniel, thanks for joining us today.
All right, so here's the, you saw the photo in the video. Here's the Golden Girls version. Is this how it works? Oh, no, the Epstein files. What was Trump doing with those older ladies? Which, by the way, side note, you think about, if you realize how old the Golden Girls were during the Golden Girls, they weren't that old. We're talking like 50s for some of them. Maybe even 40s for some of them. I don't know. People look younger these days. I don't know. But nonetheless, that's how ridiculous this whole thing is. Ridiculous. All right. I was going to take a break here, but we're running behind, so I'm going to skip the break and keep going. And we will take a break in a few minutes before Seth Woodall joins us, an attorney who joins us on the show regularly to give us insight on what's going on. And so we want to make sure we're ready for him when that happens. Candace Owens and Erika Kirk had a meeting on Monday. Erika Kirk tweeted out, "Candace Owens and I are meeting for a private in-person discussion. Candace and I have agreed that public discussions, live streams, and tweets are on hold until after this meeting. I look forward to a productive conversation." Shortly after that, Candace Owens putting this tweet out. Oh, no, that's not Candace's tweet. This is after the meeting. "Had a very productive conversation with real Candace O." That's Erika Kirk's tweet. "More to come from both of us. Looking forward to AmFest this week. Time to get back to work." And you have Candace Owens says the meeting with Erika Kirk lasted for over 4 hours, says the meeting was extremely productive. Here's the actual tweet. "I think we both feel this meeting should have taken place a lot earlier than it did. We agreed much more than I had anticipated. Of course, we also disagreed on various points and people as well. Most importantly, we were able to share intel and clarify intent. I will, of course, have a full rundown for you all tomorrow, as I'm currently exhausted, but I wanted to quickly let you guys know that absolutely nothing was held back, and the immediate result was tensions were thawed. Okay, well, we can hope that's the case. I think Erika Kirk could have just potentially saved Candace Owens' career by initiating this meeting, because the place Candace was heading, where all credibility was being shot, and she had, I would say, no future. She may still have no future, and people say, "Well, what? Our views are up and all this stuff." Yeah, but once this trial is televised and all that, Candace Owens and her credibility will be completely decimated, and she will have nothing left. But Candace has a chance here to start walking back some of these things that she's been saying and realign herself in the lane of, hey, I want answers, but I'm not a freaking nut job. She can do that. I don't know if she will. I think the odds are she's way too far gone. But we will see. We will see what came out of this. I think I guess I'm glad they met. Charlie wrote this book, Stop in the Name of God, about observing the Sabbath, taking a day every week to unwind, disconnect, etc. And Erika Kirk has been making the rounds in media talking about that book. She did a town hall, I believe it was with ABC, and very emotional, very tough questions. ABC allowed some inappropriate questions. The guy who was asking, the last person that Charlie Kirk ever talked to, that guy was up there and asked her basically to condemn President Trump's speech about things, something freaking ridiculous. Had nothing to do with the, actual topic at hand. And by the way, the guy didn't even say sorry for your loss. I mean, so it was a bit of a hit job in some ways, but Erika Kirk, I thought, handled it really well. Now, Rob Reiner, actor, director, and his wife murdered on Sunday night, and the allegation is their son is the one that murdered them with a knife. Now, Rob Reiner, he's definitely a raging liberal. And President Trump put out this Truth Social post that really upset a lot of people. Hold on. I can't let this go. Pam, what was Candace right about? Pam says Candace was 1,000% right. About what? Pam says, I literally can't believe you are discounting her. Tyler Robinson was not the killer, and everyone who accepts that narrative is ignorant. Well, then provide some actual proof, Pam. I respectfully disagree with you, but I'm not ignorant. I'm not sitting here saying Tyler Robinson acted alone. I've never said that. But until the evidence is actually revealed, because unless you work for the Utah law enforcement or the FBI, you don't know. You don't know any of it. None of us do. So until the evidence is actually presented, I can't say whether Tyler Robinson acted alone or not. No one can. And Candace being right, what was she right about? She doesn't like the way a guy responded after the event. Mikey McCoy getting on his phone and walking away in the manner that he did explains nothing. It's more far-fetched to say that he was in on it and calling someone saying like, yeah, we just did it, or he just knew it was going to happen, so he's just totally calm. I've watched the response after Charlie Kirk was shot. I've seen the various angles that show that bullet stayed in his body. The biggest question that I would grant credibility to is, how did a 30-06 round do that and stay in his body? Those are reasonable questions, and if we have actual more information on it, then that would help illuminate it. But the information they have may also say, wait a minute, that's impossible once you have the autopsy report. We don't know that, though. And there are plenty of experts, for just as many of experts say it could never be a 30-06 round. There are plenty of other experts that say, actually, I've seen bullets do some crazy stuff. It depends on the round, depend on what it was. I've seen things like this happen. This is not out of the realm of possibility. So again, until we see actual evidence, until we see the autopsy, none of us can really say there's no way that happened or that didn't happen or whatever. But what else? What else is there? People wearing the same shirts, an Egyptian plane, and blah, blah, blah. That is just that. All that does is get clicks. So again, I ask you, what was what was Candace right about? All right. Pam says, watch the video closer of all Charlie's close security detail. People inside TPUSA were reaching out to Candace as well. I don't believe that. That's Candace's word over mine. Anonymous sources don't mean jack. Go out on the record and say it. Candace is not credible when she says people tell her stuff because she's been duped many times. But when you want to talk about the way the security people, tell me specifically what they did. You're talking about hand gestures. Watch every single event that Charlie Kirk did, and some of them just do the same movements over and over. That's just what they do. Well, there's one guy who kind of has a deal where he's always like touching his face. Some people have nervous reactions. But saying there was a hand gesture that signaled someone to shoot him when you watch every other event and the guy does the same gestures. But when you actually see and people say Charlie was alive because his arm came up. If you understand first aid and treating somebody, they did everything right. They laid him over. They were behind the table. You see the guy that actually treated him because later on he had blood all over him. When you have someone who has a neck wound, you can't put a tourniquet around the neck. You must put it underneath the arm and the neck. The arm is the stability. That's why they lifted up the arm. When you look at the actual time that it took for them to administer that first aid, it was incredible. It was mere seconds. Now, why was there no ambulance there at the event? I don't know. Why did local law enforcement not secure the roof? I don't know. They should have. They told Charlie security that they had it covered. Those are all good questions, but they don't mean there was some kind of conspiracy. Again, Pam says the 30-06 narrative is ridiculous. Is it as ridiculous as Israel carrying this out? I mean, think about this, okay? Again, you need to watch the guy from Phoenix Ammo go through all the variables that one would have to know before you could ever do a scientific assessment of whether or not a 30-06 could do that. So again, you've given me nothing specific that Candace Owens has been right about. Respectfully, you've gotten drawn in to the conspiracy. And this is how Candace is making hay right now by alleging, by being vague, by being very, very, conspiratorial and just saying things. Oh, this just doesn't make sense. Yeah, there's a lot of things that don't make sense until you have the information that comes out during the actual trial. They don't put all this stuff out before a trial. That would be stupid. They never have done that. Usually the assassin is killed. If it was a cover-up, in my opinion, one of the first things that would happen is this guy would have been killed. He never would have been able to escape alive if this were a cover-up, whether he pulled the trigger or not. Okay? So let's say it's a cover-up. He never pulled the trigger. He would mysteriously have committed suicide in the woods behind this place, or somebody would have shot him. You don't let a loose end out when you are staging a professional hit. That's just conspiracy 101. All right, I've got to get to these things. So a lot of people are upset with President Trump for putting this message out on Truth Social. He said a very sad thing happened last night in Hollywood. Rob Reiner, a tortured and struggling but once very talented movie director and comedy star, has passed away, together with his wife, Michelle, reportedly due to the anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding, and incurable affliction with a mind-crippling disease known as Trump derangement syndrome, sometimes referred to as TDS. So he's saying he passed away due to the anger he caused others from his TDS. That's a little bit strange. I don't know what he's talking about. Trump says he was known to have driven people crazy by his raging obsession of Trump and his obvious paranoia reaching new heights as the Trump administration surpassed all goals and expectations of greatness. And with the golden age of America upon us, perhaps like never before, may Rob and Michelle rest in peace. So I would say that was ill-advised. It's an unforced error, I think, from the president. But at the same time, Rob Reiner, isn't some saint. Rob Reiner attacked Rush Limbaugh as a purveyor of disinformation a day after he died. So he bashed Rush Limbaugh the very next day, describing him as a bigot, etc. I loathe the effing man is what he tweeted. So people trying to say, Rob Reiner was above that. He wasn't. He actually did that. Okay. Now, Trump didn't go that far. And part of the reason, or maybe the main reason, is Trump knew that Rob Reiner railed on him constantly. Here's a clip of Rob Reiner talking about ranting about Trump.
You have a complete and utter lying buffoon. I mean, I'm going to tell you the truth. He's a fraud. He lies. He cheats people. Everything that comes out of his mouth virtually is a lie. And he's a con man. And if you look at what he's done with his career and how he's tricked people into things, it's abhorrent. I never liked George W. Bush, his policies, but I didn't hate the guy. I hate this man. I've never hated a politician. I can't not hate somebody who bilks innocent people out of money, life savings. And we've seen it. He, with that Trump University, he took people's money, $35,000, wiped these people out, and is being sued for it. He steals money from charities. I'm not making this stuff up.
All right. So this is the way this guy talked about President Trump. So you can sort of at least get where the president was coming from in laying out no love lost for Rob Reiner. Would I have advised him to do it? No, because you just create a lightning rod. You just create a lightning rod that distracts. And, it doesn't matter how bad someone was when they were alive. It's never good to speak ill of the dead. It never hits the way maybe that you want it to, I guess, is probably my point. So anyway, though, you at least see the why behind the president, not showing any remorse from the loss of Rob Reiner. All right, we're going to take a quick break and then be joined after the break from attorney Seth Woodall. We're talking about the FBI. It's now been revealed that they doubted at the time that there was probable cause for the Mara-lago raid, but pushed forward amid pressure from the Biden DOJ. These emails that have come out said very little has been developed related to who might be culpable for mishandling the documents. The FBI wrote. This is a Fox News exclusive. And you have the raid moving forward amid pressure from the Biden Justice Department, with an official saying he didn't, quote, give a damn about the optics of the search. So it seems it didn't matter how the search looked. It didn't matter whether or not there was probable cause. The main thing was this was a political hit job against their political opponent. We'll talk to Seth Woodall about this and a bit about the Rob Reiner situation, and maybe if we have time, some Hillary Clinton news. All that coming up after the break. You're watching the Ike Wingate Show.
Oh, hey. Didn't see you there. Well, just hanging out on the farm here. One thing I was thinking about this morning is, when's the next crisis going to hit? It's not really a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. And we really can't rely on the government to take care of a shortage or something like that. We just got to take care of ourselves. You remember back in COVID, you tried to go to the store and everything was gone? Well, you can't risk that kind of thing. That's why I suggest My Patriot Supply. You can go to preparewithike.com and get your 4-week emergency food kit. Save $50 when you use my URL. Again, it is preparewithike.com. It's not a matter of if. It's just a matter of when. And the question is, when it does happen, will your family eat? Make sure there's no question about it. Take action now. Save $50, 4-week emergency food kit. Preparewithike.com. Fourscore and 7 years ago, there used to be men in this country. Now this country's full of a bunch of weenie men. You think about all the stuff that's in the water, plastics, microplastics, there's estrogen everywhere. In fact, compared to 100 years ago, men have half the testosterone that they used to. Look, it's not like getting shot in the back of the head. All you need to do is take chalk once every day, and you can boost your testosterone for fun things that require your energy, like working out or playing sports or actually spending time with your kids. I wish I could do that, but I can't because I'm dead. But if I were alive, I would take chalk. The Patriots said chalk combine the most powerful herbal extracts, so it's all natural, giving you that lift that you need. George, come spot me.
Well, Abe, if I too were alive, I'd gladly spot you.
It's time to boost your testosterone to levels not seen since 1776 or 1860 or 1864, whatever. But it's herbal. It's natural. It's made in the USA. It's been clinically studied to boost testosterone. We're talking about chalk. Okay? Stop being all weird with this trends and everything else. We didn't have that back in my day. We had real men. It's time to get boosted back to those levels when men were men and women were women and there wasn't anything in between. Right, Mary?
Yes, Lincoln.
That's right. Get chalk. IceWingate.com. Get chalk. If you want to be like me, get chalk. Except for the dead part. Okay. IceWingate.com.
Hey there! Tired of watching your subscription costs climb higher and higher? With Q Broadcast, you get more for less. All your favorite channels and content bundled into one unbeatable package. No contracts, no hidden fees, just simple, affordable streaming. Say goodbye to overpriced services and hello to a new era of entertainment. This is streaming the way it should be. Q Broadcast, this changes everything.
You can sign up for Q Streaming today at IkeWingate.com. Just click Get Q Streaming to start streaming tons of channels, video on demand, even pay-per-view, all for the same price. It's all included. This is a Christian conservative-owned company that does not hate your values. Stop giving money to the cabal of big tech. Support companies that support your values. Right now at IkeWingate.com, just click Get Q Streaming.
He's the Rush Limbaugh for the next generation. Now back to the Ike Wingate Show.
Welcome back, friends. Glad you are with us here on the Ike Wingate Show. And we are joined right now by Seth Woodall of Seth Woodall and Associates, an attorney, and always a great source of information when it comes to what is happening out there, especially especially with these witch hunts and the things that continue to happen now as far as judges and their resistance to the various policies that President Trump's put in place, but also as he was running for office. Seth, thanks for joining us. It's good to have you with us again today.
Hey, Ike, how are you?
Doing well. Thank you. Merry Christmas to you, if I forget to say it before we're done here.
Same to you.
Thank you. So this conversation here, or this story rather, that's out, I'm going to put it up on the screen. And the FBI doubted probable cause for Mara-lago raid, but pushed forward amid pressure from the Biden DOJ. There's even indicators in here, probable cause wasn't there, that they needed, maybe they should have a conversation with the Trump attorney before they move forward, which I don't believe they they did so. And so you have all these things stacking up, one source of information on it as well. There were doubts being expressed inside of the FBI prior to this raid on Mar-a-Lago, which has been, largely critiqued, right? Just the invasion of privacy, going through the various personal effects of the First Lady and others. What do you think was at play here, if you had to guess?
It was a direct weaponization of the Department of Justice against Trump, and all they were trying to do was shut him down so that he would not win the most recent election. So, if you look at any of the reports from the FBI leading up to the execution of that search warrant, there was doubts from day one. FBI agents were saying, "Hey, we don't think we have probable cause," but DOJ officials were saying, "We're going to move forward." And I think one of them actually said, "We don't care if we have the evidence or not, and we don't care what public perception is. We're going to move forward." So if you look at what was done, it was a step-by-step illegal search all the way from the beginning to the end. What they were looking for is alleged classified documents. And I think we all know that President Trump, as the acting president, can declassify any documents that he wants. And so they were just trying to trump up charges. They did that. Jack Smith was attempting to prosecute Donald Trump down in Florida after Donald Trump secured the nomination and the win back in November. Those charges shortly thereafter were dismissed. But it's clear that this was a weaponization of the Department of Justice, and they were going after him at all cost to try to stop him.
It's interesting that those cases really started, or at least picked up any notable level of speed after Trump announced that he was going to run again. Prior to that, there weren't really, we didn't really hear much about this. So the timing certainly matches. Who do you think was behind this specific raid on Mar-a-Lago? Was it Merrick Garland? I mean, it's kind of hard to put it as Joe Biden because I don't know that he knew what was going on. But who do you think really was pushing this behind the scenes?
I think it probably was Merrick Garland. I don't believe that President Biden had the wherewithal of the mental acuity to make any decisions, much less to try to intentionally weaponize the Department of Justice through a execution of a search warrant. So I do believe that Merrick Garland was behind this. And he appointed Jack Smith specifically for this. They targeted Trump. And as you said just a minute ago, all of this was quiet until President Trump came back on the scene and said, "I will be running in the next election cycle." And then all of a sudden, they come out of the woodworks and they're going to do anything they can. And they just, they created factual scenarios. They absolutely controlled the narrative about what was going on to try to or make Trump look evil, look as if he was doing things wrong. And, they found these classified documents allegedly at Mar-a-Lago, but we know that Trump's attorneys were not contacted before the execution of the search warrant. They were not told about this. And there's documentation within the FBI files that in fact, the Department of Justice head said, "Hey, we've already burned some bridges with Trump's attorneys and we're not going to give them a heads up." So they executed the search warrant. It's something else that is important to note. And what they're looking for is classified documents. There is language in the search warrant authorizing law enforcement to use deadly force against the president and the individuals around him to secure those documents. That is unheard of in situations like this. And it shows you at what lengths these Democrat liberals will go to try to stop their opposition. All this is to try to put a speed bump in any momentum that President Trump had.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I was actually getting ready to go there. The deadly force authorization was shocking and sort of showed, hey, this is far more beyond, oh, hey, maybe you had some documents he shouldn't have had, but, obviously he could have declassified. So it seemed like a vendetta from the get-go. Have you heard, or do you have any theories regarding the specific documents that President Trump had, that they were going to spell out some things and the, alleged deep state or those in power found out that he had those and wanted to get them? Do you put much stock in that, or do you look at it as more just a political opportunity to try to take him down?
I put no stock in anything that the media says, nor what the liberal Democrats say. So this was just an evil attempt to try to create problems for President Trump, those classified documents. And we have a longstanding history in the United States of presidents leaving office and taking documents and declassifying them. We know for a fact that Joe Biden, when he was not president, but when he was vice president, had classified documents sitting in a garage next to his Corvette. Now, what we have with Trump is these documents were actually at Mar-a-Lago. I've been to Mar-a-Lago. There's more security at Mar-a-Lago and more Secret Service at Mar-a-Lago than probably anywhere on this earth, with the exception of the White House. Those documents, if they were or they did exist at Trump's house, were controlled in a controlled environment and very safe. I put no stock in the idea that there's some deep state documents that was going to lead to some revelation to show how bad the Republicans were or anything that Trump had done. This is, again, shows that the liberal Democrats will stop at no end, including deadly force, to stop their opposition.
Yeah, and it was interesting how they staged a lot of those photos, moved evidence around, the bathroom, and then took the photos. And so, again, one of these conspiracies that everyone said, oh, that didn't happen, we're seeing it come to light. A couple of other quick things here. Just declassified FBI documents revealing that Andrew McCabe throttled the investigation of the Clinton Foundation in 2016. Obviously, McCabe's wife was a Democrat strategist and did some stuff for the Clintons. This was denying field agents evidence from the Wiener laptop and wanted to avoid from headquarters. The line was, avoid creating any impression we are investigating the Clinton Foundation or the Clintons. And this new memo shows how the corruption probe into the Clinton Foundation was killed. We were told no by FBI headquarters. So I'm sure that's probably not a surprise to you, Seth. But the overall question here is, we're through maybe the discovery of evidence or documents in these burn bags or whatever. We're starting to see that the deep state was protecting its own. Do you think we actually get any accountability from a situation like this? What do you think happens?
If we get any accountability, it's going to come with the current administration. It would have never happened before. We know that 10, 12, 15 years ago, that FBI was receiving tips that the then acting Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, was engaged in soliciting money from foreign countries. Now, this is the acting Secretary of State, and she's taking money for her foundation and for her family from foreign countries. I think it's clear that money was being used to buy persuasion, to buy something or some favoritism from the acting president and or the government at the federal level. We know that the Clintons were doing this. We feel confident that the Clintons were engaged in criminal behavior and have continued to do so over and over and over. If you looked at all of the allegations that have been made against the Clintons over the last 20 years, they're voluminous. I mean, there's no telling how many tips have come in of things that have happened, some of which are certainly not true, but some of which probably are and need to be looked into. What happened here is that FBI was trying to look into it, or the law enforcement, and they were shut down from the very top and said, we are not going to make any appearances that we're looking into the Clintons. They've not done anything wrong, and you guys can just stop right here. And that's what they've done. So I'm hoping that Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice now will look into this. Now, part of the problem is that at the federal level, there are statute of limitations for criminal charges. And so there could be some prohibitions on criminal charges on some of these. Now, we don't know what actually exists, but I'm hopeful that Pam Bondi will actually appoint her own special prosecutor to look into the Clintons, because it's a long time that somebody looked at their actions.
I mean, just politically, from a huge win, if you were able to actually get some accountability and prosecution of the Clintons, that would go a long way for people restoring trust to the government, to the DOJ. I'm not going to place a bet on it, but certainly it would go a long way. Let's talk a little bit briefly here about the Rob Reiner and his wife, Michelle, the murder situation and the investigation now. The reports are that there was a fight that broke out the night before between Rob Reiner and his son, some big argument, heated argument that actually happened allegedly at Conan O'Brien's Christmas party. We know that the son, the alleged murderer here, had an addiction problem for years. Rob Reiner, his wife, seemed to have done everything they possibly could to try to help him. But there was a medical clearance that had to happen before this Nick Reiner arraignment. It's leading some people to wonder, Seth, are they going to try to get this guy off on sort of a insanity defense, do you think? What do you think happens here?
So some of these facts are unknown. So we're dealing with some uncertainties, but we do know that there was an argument between the Reiners and Nick, their son, and we do know that Nick has substance abuse issues and most likely mental health issues. This is a terrible incident, and I don't think anybody that is on our side, agrees with anything Rob Reiner has said or done against Trump. But it's a terrible incident and a tragedy. With that being said, we're in a state there that is very liberal with bond conditions. Now, I will say that in all states, it's not uncommon when a murder like that happens that a suspect will be placed in basically an involuntary commitment for their own safety and the safety of the community. So it's not that uncommon that would happen. But I certainly believe that it lends at least the argument that they may make the defense or create the defense or raise the defense of some type of insanity, whether or not that's voluntary intoxication through the use of narcotics or substances, or whether or not he was temporarily insane because of some substances, or maybe he's just mentally cracked. I'm not that familiar with him. I know they've had problems with him over the years, and I think they actually were not having contact for some time. And now he's looped back, and I can just see this argument at Conan O'Brien's. That's a who's who of left-wing ideology there, but it's tragic. But we know that it's most likely him. I think the evidence points that they found blood stained clothes at Nick's hotel where he was staying. So I think it's too early to really try to assume or speculate on what's going to happen. But I can promise you this, I am familiar with the attorney, Alan Jackson, that they're using out there. And he's going to come up with some crafty arguments, I promise. And we still don't know where the money's come for the retainer of Alan Jackson. But I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't raise the defense of some type of insanity.
Are you saying, you sort of mentioned it earlier, are you saying if Nick Reiner was high or something on drugs, that somehow that would play into some kind of defense that would, garner him less of a sentence? I mean, I've heard the insanity plea. I'm not familiar with, the defense of being high at the time. How does that work?
So in some states, voluntary intoxication is a defense to specific intent crimes. So where you have first degree, and I think the prosecutors there are looking at first degree murder versus second degree murder, and they're questioning what their evidence is and what they can prove. First degree murder is a specific intent crime, meaning that you have to form the specific intent with premeditation to go and murder and take the life of an individual. In the defense of voluntary intoxication, if you are voluntarily or involuntarily intoxicated to the extent that you have lost all inhibition and ability to control your own mind, there's the idea or legal theory that you did not have the ability to form the specific intent to commit the crime. So that doesn't mean that you're not culpable of something lesser that is a strict liability crime, meaning that your intent doesn't matter, like the second degree murder of just killing a human being with malice or recklessness or negligence. So yeah, the voluntary intoxication defense is allowed in some states, and basically it's just the argument that you don't have the ability in your mind to form the specific intent to do a certain action. And in murder, it would be to premeditate and actually carry out the plan.
Interesting. Okay. Well, we always learn something every time from Seth Woodall. Thank you so much for joining us here today, sir. Seth Woodall of Seth Woodall and Associates. And we look forward to always, to talking to you again soon. And if we don't talk to you, like I said, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, sir.
All right. Thanks, Ike.
Thank you. All right. I've never heard of that. That's pretty interesting. The insanity or the intoxication aspect. We'll have to keep an eye on that, friends. But remember, you heard it here first. I do want to play this a little bit of this clip to find out if we can glean any more after that argument at Conan O'Brien's house. Let's see if we can get anything from that.
News alert. Rob Reiner and his wife found dead inside their $13 million Los Angeles mansion, both fatally stabbed to death. Their son, Nick Reiner, was immediately a suspect, was arrested, and now is on suicide watch. Rob Reiner leaves behind a legacy. The actor and director was a fixture in Hollywood for decades.
$26,000 worth of sides?
Okay, I don't want to get any more of the, let's see here.
Masseuse arrived. She repeatedly knocked and rang the bell before realizing something was wrong.
All right, so Rob Reiner schedules a massage. The masseuse goes over there, knocks. He doesn't answer. She finds this odd. I believe she goes across the street to where his daughter lives.
So she contacted Reiner's daughter, who lived across the street. When the daughter entered the home, she found both parents dead and called 911 and immediately identified a dangerous relative as a likely suspect, a tip that led to her brother, Nick. Rob Reiner and Nick had a heated argument the night before at Conan O'Brien's Christmas party. Reports say it was about Nick possibly being back on drugs and refusing yet another treatment. Quote, Nick was freaking everyone out, acting crazy, kept asking people if they were famous. Sources say Rob Reiner believed his son was deteriorating. Nick spent his life battling addiction, cocaine, heroin, pills. He was sent to rehab when he was just 15. By the time he was 22, he'd gone to rehab 17 times.
Okay, so just a sad story all around. We will stay tuned to find out more about that. Police, though, are reporting that Nick Reiner was taken into custody without incident when he was actually taken into custody. And if you missed it, of course, a shooting at Brown University over the weekend in Rhode Island, and the search continues for this shooter. The FBI has released some photos. They aren't great photos as far as being able to tell what this person looked like. I really can't tell. I've gone back and forth with trying to observe. He sort of looks like a white guy here. In other photos, it looks like maybe a black guy or something. And so I really don't know. I don't know. These aren't great pictures, but, they had a guy in custody. Turned out it wasn't him. Unfortunately for that guy, his life is probably not great right now because everyone thought it was this dude and went nuts on him. So I don't know how that got leaked. I mean, that's a major mistake. Someone who's just a suspect who's detained for questioning, their identity shouldn't be all over the place in a situation like this. And so really harmful to that guy. Yeah, it's really odd. I'm not sure what's going on here. Now, unfortunately, 2 National Guardsmen from Iowa were killed in Syria by an ISIS terrorist. That happened as well, and just a really sad weekend as far as news goes.
Some sad news now out of Iowa. An Iowa police chief revealing that his son is one of the soldiers who died in that ambush attack in Syria over the weekend. His name is Nate Howard. He was one of 2 National Guardsmen shot and killed by what the Pentagon is calling a lone ISIS gunman. His father posting this tribute. My wife, Misty, and I had that visit from Army commanders you never want to have. Our son, Nate, was one of the soldiers that paid the ultimate sacrifice for all of us to keep us all safer. The Army just releasing the name of the second soldier killed, Sergeant Edgar Brian Torres Tovar, age 25, out of Des Moines, Iowa. A civilian interpreter also dead, his identity not yet made public. It happened as the men were on a counterterrorism mission in the town of Palmyra, southeastern Syria. The gunman also dead in the crossfire this past weekend. Tough stuff.
All right. Sad situation there. Even though we're not in an active war, our servicemen and women are still bravely out there risking their lives. And unfortunately, those 2 have lost theirs. Okay. And then, of course, you had the big targeting of Jewish people, anti-Semitic attack on Bondi Beach in Australia, where they were there for Hanukkah by the sea, and these two Islamic terrorists opened fire on people, a father and son. The son had a bolt-action rifle perched on this bridge. Thankfully, the father was neutralized by a bystander, or the casualties could have been worse. But Australian police say this mass shooter was shooters inspired by the Islamic State group ISIS. 15 people killed. And I understand people say, people throw around this anti-Semitic word sometimes on things that, are probably not anti-Semitic. It's just someone doesn't like somebody or whatever. Same with, xenophobia or whatever. But this is undeniable anti-Semitism. I mean, violent, deadly anti-Semitism is real. It's real. No pun with Israel, but it's real. Okay, you can't deny it. These people were targeted simply because of their faith, their heritage, whatever, how they were born. I mean, whatever you want to say. Because they were Jewish, they were gunned down because they were at this Jewish celebration. And so there's no question. There's no question. There are anti-Semitic threats out there. And I think there's also no question that violent radical Islam is on the rise. We continue to see it over and over. And I think, as Charlie Kirk warned, we're going to continue to see it on the rise. Are there people that are Muslims who aren't really practicing Muslims, or maybe are Muslim light, Islam light? Yes. There's a lot of the world that would identify culturally as a Muslim. Do they read the Quran? No. I mean, there's a lot of people like that. But the ones that take it seriously, they are radical, I would argue, most of the time. Okay, there's plenty of devout people that say, well, you can't trust, the writings over here, but you can trust this. I mean, if you're reading everything in its entirety, though, there's a lot of motivation to kill everybody else but Muslims. And so I believe this is generally not every Muslim. And again, like I said, there are a lot of people that say they're Muslim, but they are not really Muslim, I would argue. It's more of a cultural identity. I mean, there's a lot of Muslims all over the world. I think Indonesia is where the largest concentration of Muslims are. And so, but then you have these places where radical Islam is alive and well, and it's spreading. And I would argue it's here in the U.S., and it's only going to get worse. And we have to be honest about it and quit worrying about offending somebody. I don't know anybody who has been a devout Christian that is going around killing people in the name of Jesus Christ. In fact, the more closely you follow Jesus, the less violent you're probably destined to be. Now, I'm not talking about righteous indignation here, okay? Because certainly there's a place for that. But my point is, you don't have people committing murder in the name of Jesus. However, you do in the name of Allah and Muhammad. What's interesting, though, is in Australia, you've got really strict gun laws. Really strict gun laws. Now, this father and son, the father had 6 guns legally, but there were no bystanders standing around with their concealed carry permits taking this guy out. He was able to shoot for quite some time. Again, like I said, a lot longer if it weren't for one hero that took one of the guys down. And I believe he got shot, actually. Is alive, I believe. But the point is, strict gun laws. What do you think the answer for Australian officials is, hey, let's quit importing people with this ideology, and we need to crack down on radical Islamic terrorists? No. The prime minister for Australia says, nope, this just means we need stricter gun laws. And you tell me, how does that make sense? Because you already have strict gun laws. You mean you want no guns?
ASIO's advice very seriously. We work closely with them. We receive regular updates as well. The Director General of ASIO has warned about a range of threats, be it anti-Semitism, the rise of right-wing extremist groups as well. And we continue to work closely.
Right-wing extremist groups? What does that have to do with it?
With our security agencies. We take.
Okay. I don't know how that's relevant. You didn't see that there in that clip, but yes, they are advocating for now stricter gun laws after that. I'm telling you, if everybody there, or at least, I don't know, 10% of the people there were carrying to be able to defend themselves, it could have been far less catastrophic. And you would also have a deterrent. When people know, hey, there's a chance that these people are armed, the likelihood of trying something like this goes way down. All right. Thankfully, though, the FBI has foiled a credible terror plot planned for New Year's Eve. 4 members of a radical pro-Palestinian group were discovered to be plotting a New Year's Eve terror event.
Breaking news, 10 minutes past the hour. This news happening out of Los Angeles. The FBI now reports that it's disrupted a planned New Year's Eve terror attack in Los Angeles. 4 suspects in custody, the FBI identifying them as members of a pro-Palestine extremist group. They're suspected of planning coordinated IED attacks targeting 5 different locations in Los Angeles. But based on the reporting now, that plot has been foiled. We will wait for more out of LA or out of Washington, D.C. for what the FBI has to say about that developing.
All right. So that was in LA. So anyway, it's always good when they catch these people before they do something, right? All right, help us out right now. You can give this live a thumbs up on whatever platform you're watching on. So like, share, and subscribe on whatever platform you prefer. If you want to follow me on all the platforms, of course, you can go to IkeReport.com, IkeReport.com. That is where I have all our platforms there. You can also give to help us cover our costs here, help us cover our hard costs for the software and the hardware and all the things and the licenses that we have to maintain to be able to bring you this content. You can do so with a $5, $10, $20, $50,000 contribution, whatever it is, whatever you feel led to do this holiday season. You can give right now via Cash App or Venmo at IkeReport.com, IkeReport.com, Cash App or Venmo. Those links are there again at IkeReport.com. But please make sure you are at least liking, sharing, and subscribing to what we are doing here. Share this episode with somebody. You can look for me on Newsmax on Thursday at 10:30 a.m. 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. And, of course, Rob Reiner's son will be charged with murder in the death of his parents. He didn't appear in court because he had not been yet medically cleared to be transferred from the jail to the courthouse. I don't know. You would think they would prioritize it a little bit, but apparently not. All right, make sure you're following me on X. My username is on the bottom of the screen. It says follow at Ike Wingate, follow at Ike Wingate. And that is my username on X. I'm trying to get over 4,000 followers, and you can help me in that. I've been hovering just below 4,000 for months. I don't know what's going on. The algorithm changed. And anyway, so help me out right now by going to X and following me at Ike Wingate, at Ike Wingate, IKEWINGATE. Okay. James says, greetings from Northern Ireland. I'm giving you a little bit of an Australian accent. Let's see. Irish. Greetings from Northern Ireland. Yes, top of the morning to you, eh? No? Right? Something like that. Okay. Well, thank you for joining us in Northern Ireland. Or huge in Northern Ireland. Yes, huge. That's Irish Trump. Let me tell you, top of the morning to you, okay? If you want to know the truth. Let's see. What else are you saying? Okay, let's see here. Pam is talking about this Charlie Kirk assassination based on what Candace Owens has been saying. Where's the blood splatter behind Charlie? The entire narrative is ridiculous. Everyone is eating it up. I'll be interested to hear about the meeting. Blood spatter behind Charlie. Why would there be blood spatter behind Charlie? Why would there be blood spatter behind? The bullet entered the neck. You see it create a temporary cavitation event where his neck, his entire body ballooned as it absorbed the initial impact of this bullet, and then it tumbled and flicked around inside of him. So there's no exit. Now, we've seen medical experts say that the wound, the entrance wound, and the way that it bled, where it hit, and what it indicated about the quick nature of his actual death, that blood spilling out indicated the absence of the body doing certain things. It's all very consistent. I don't remember exactly the explanation as to why, but it indicated maybe the heart had stopped. That's what it was, because of the way the blood came out. But I mean, it poured out. They laid him over. They dressed the wound. There were plenty of people with blood on them. You saw somebody make a phone call. You saw somebody hand keys over. I mean, when you're looking at something that's really strange and everybody's moving around, I mean, I get it. You're like, this is weird. But when you know why people are doing what they're doing, a lot of times it's like, okay, that makes sense. But when you know nothing about what they're doing, it's easy to jump to a lot of, well, it looks like this or it looks like that. I mean, remember how many people said that the microphone on his shirt exploded? You remember that? That's just utterly ridiculous. There is no evidence of that. You literally see the round. If you've seen the slowed down video, go watch Chris Martinson's video of this, where he has slowed it down. You literally see him absorb the round. His body gets much bigger. And so I don't know specifically what you're talking about. I don't know why there would be blood spatter behind him. I have no idea why that would need to be present and where that would come from, actually. Anyway. Okay. I'll await your answer on that, Pam, and see if there's something I'm just not, I'm misunderstanding maybe about your question. Okay. But I mean, I've watched all the videos. I've examined it from multiple angles. Believe me. I mean, a little bit of credibility and trust would be nice here. When something doesn't add up, I'm like the first person to bring it up and say, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. And I would, of course, watch that video trying to figure out inconsistencies. There are things that don't make sense, but they're not so obvious that they explain some other theory. They just aren't. What we're seeing on that video is consistent with what they're telling us as a possibility. It's in the realm of possibility. It just is. And so with that being said, I'm not convinced there wasn't other people helping there. I don't understand why the guy did the distraction. I don't understand any of those things. Like, to say that he acted alone is hard for me to believe, but it doesn't mean, just because it's hard for me to believe doesn't mean it's not possible or not true. Now, because we've just seen a bunch of circumstantial odd evidence. The other side of this, though, is, my real reason for thinking he didn't act alone was that he was covering for his furry lover in those text messages, trying to provide an alibi, because there's such odd text messages. And so I'm like, I think this other furry dude was in on it. But the police haven't been able to tie him to being there. Here's the other thing. I thought these text messages don't make sense. Candace Owens is emphatic, just like absolutely certain in her mind that the feds sent these text messages to create this cover-up. Absolutely certain. It's a Fed cover-up. Oh, is it? Have you read Tyler Robinson's messages on the various Discord channels, these online channels? Have you read any of his correspondence going back months and months, if not years? Have you read any of it? That's exactly the way that the guy types, in complete sentences, rarely ever abbreviating anything. He types things out like he's a nerd. Again, I'm a supporter of actual correct grammar and punctuation in text messages, believe me, but the way he's communicating it is very nerdy when you read it. Like, okay, you're a dork. But that's the thing. He's consistently a dork in the way that he communicates via text in these Discord channels. It matches. So you might go, it doesn't make sense. Who would type that? That's the feds. Actually, that's the way this guy communicates and has for some time. It matches. Does it make sense to you or me? No. But there's a lot of crap and a lot of things people do that doesn't make any sense to me. But I'm not God and don't say, if you don't do this a certain way, then it's wrong. No, I don't have that power. Just because it's something I wouldn't do or something I don't understand doesn't mean it's not true. And that's the mistake I think Candace Owens is making, even though I think she knows what's true and what isn't, and she's just milking this thing. But that's the danger a lot of people make. If it doesn't make sense to you, then therefore it couldn't have happened. Well, you also have to go into this with a dose of humility and say, is it possible? Like, I don't believe it. It doesn't make sense to me, but is it possible? And that's what a lot of people fail to do. They just say, it doesn't make sense, so it couldn't have happened. To me, it doesn't make sense that two young guys would communicate like this, but they've been doing it for quite some time in the same manner. So I'm backing away from the possibility that this guy worked with someone else, specifically his gay lover, trans, furry boyfriend. I'm backing away from that now after reading the correspondence, because I'm like, well, maybe the furry didn't have anything to do with it. I really don't know, but that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying he didn't or he did. I'm just saying I don't know. There's enough reasonable doubt now, but they're certainly in the beginning, I'm thinking this is a cover. They're covering up their coordination by basically texting this alibi, so to speak. So you see what I'm saying? With more information, you can adjust, but I'm adjusting away from any kind of conspiracy possibility. The other whole side of this is, if there was credible evidence, like there's credible evidence with the Thomas Crooks assassination attempt of President Trump that make no sense. How he got on that roof specifically with all that security there and that situation, the drone, so many things that were overlooked. Okay. And then the fact that like you're not seeing this footprint about him or anything. And of course he's dead, so you can't ask him anything. You see, all these things happen and you go, yeah, there's got to be more to this. There's enough there where you're like, so, I believe there's more to this. That's not the case in this Charlie Kirk assassination. It's not the case. To me, the one thing is you got to understand the round he fired to be able to corroborate that could have happened. Okay. That's the big question in my mind, but it doesn't mean all of it's totally false. The problem is with people rushing to throw out all these conspiracies about a freaking Egyptian plane and all that. All it does is diminish the heinous, evil act of the guy who did it, which I believe for sure is Tyler Robinson. Whether he had help or not, I don't know. But certainly all of these theories are diminishing the culpability of the actual raging, leftist, trans-loving lunatic who pulled the trigger. And to me, that's just a tragedy. That's where the focus should be. And all these conspiracy theories are just diluting that. And I think, could potentially put in danger the trial. I'm not saying don't ask questions, but don't make definitive statements that are bullcrap. All right. Speaking of crap, former President Joe Biden is having a hard time raising money for his library. Biden has raised little of what he needs to build a presidential library, raising exactly $0 in new donations in all of 2024. I doubt 2025 was any better. Imagine that. What kind of exhibits do you think that they would have at Joe Biden's library? Maybe a kiosk where you can get some ice cream, maybe a porta potty in case someone has to poop like out of nowhere. Or I would love to see the exhibit of the auto pen in his library, right? Wouldn't that be nice? Little auto pen exhibit. Here's one thing you can definitely count on at the Biden Presidential Library. There'll be a large lost and found section, right? Big lost and found, right? Anyway, in all seriousness, it is not surprising at all that people don't want to put their name on a donation to a president that stood for open borders and a wrecked economy and a botched Afghanistan withdrawal, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, who would want to put their money on that? They'd rather put their money on the Obama library that looks like a freaking, I don't know, it's like a prison is what it looks like. But anyway, the state of Arkansas, the first state to sever ties with PBS effective July 1st. The commission that oversees public television in Arkansas voted to sever ties with PBS, making it the first state to end its contract with a broadcast giant that provides popular television programs like Sesame Street and Antiques Roadshow. It plans to disaffiliate from PBS effective July 1st, citing annual membership dues of about $2.5 million. It described as not feasible. So the state of Arkansas, and probably in your state as well, but the state of Arkansas paying PBS $2.5 million to basically, I don't know, indoctrinate people. A lot of great programs on PBS, but it's also quite liberal. The release also cited the unexpected loss of about that same amount of federal funding from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Public television in Arkansas is not going away. It's just changing. Blah, 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 blah. So there you go. One of the first states to do so. Good news here. More than 9,500 commercial truckers have been taken off the roads nationwide. We continue to hear of these stories, unfortunately, after it's too late, of these illegal immigrant truckers that were given a commercial driver's license in a state like California or Illinois, killing an entire family because they weren't obeying traffic laws. And many times they don't speak English and can't even read the traffic signs. And so the Trump administration has been cracking down on those drivers and the companies that employ these pilots of a death trap, basically a large piece of equipment, an 18-wheeler, very heavy, very dangerous. It takes skill to drive, and they don't even know how to read traffic signs. The Trump administration is doing what it takes to protect the American people, and any of these places that are giving out these commercial driver's licenses to someone who doesn't even speak English. I mean, to me, you need to be able to speak English to get a driver's license in the United States of America. I think that should be the first thing you have to pass. You can speak English just to get a driver's license. But I would argue, should an illegal immigrant even have a driver's license? The answer is no. So if you are a legal immigrant, you should have to speak English, I think. And you should have to speak English to get a driver's license. You should be able to pass an English test. I think that's just basic common sense. Okay, Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm fighting for you by quitting. Yeah, another quitter. But at least she's not a quitter when it comes to love, I guess. Announcing she is engaged to Brian Glenn, the reporter for News Nation. Oh, aren't you guys so cute? Hey, congrats. I hope you find happiness, but I'll always see Marjorie Taylor Greene as a quitter. Unless she comes out and says she has a terminal illness, I think it's completely unacceptable to quit on your constituents mid-term. Do you disagree with me? If you do, let me know. I don't think that's ever an appropriate thing to do. Help us out right now. Hit the thumbs up, share the broadcast, and subscribe. Please help us out. Please repost this on X, heart the post and repost. Follow me on X at Ike Wingate. A big win for Maha. Walmart is removing food dyes in some of its foods.
The nation's biggest retailer embracing the Maha movement, Walmart, currently working on making its store brand food free of food dyes and 30 other ingredients. From Bentonville, Arkansas, the headquarters for Walmart, Fox Business' Kelly Saberi is looking at that. What'd you find out, Kelly?
Hi, Bill. Welcome to Walmart's Culinary Innovation Center. This new building is 23,000 square feet where food scientists, chefs, and people like you and me taste test these foods. Now, this is a massive undertaking as the nation's biggest grocer, and each of these products has its own unique challenges. Take candy, for example. Not only are they taking out the colors of the original product, but they're also working out both the taste and texture, which we know is equally as important. And it's one of their top-selling categories. So let's take the sour worms, for example. They have titanium dioxide in them, and now they'll take that out, which removes that pop of neon. New versions use things like spirulina and turmeric for the color. And if you can believe it, I think the new version actually tastes better than the original. So I asked, how will Walmart, such a big company present in 9 out of 10 homes, change the way Americans eat? They tell me their decisions are dictated by the consumer, not the other way around.
All right, so consumers want it, and so that's why they're doing it. Now, this is Walmart's store brand, the generic, if you will. They are removing those food dyes to allow people to be more healthy. Actually, only hold on that. Let me get Bob McPherson. Bob McPherson says, give an example. Give an example of what? Bob McPherson says you can't get a driver's license without learning how to read traffic signs. Bob, they may have been able to somehow pass the test. But Bob, if you're not aware that illegal immigrants that can't read traffic signs are out there driving big rigs, then you have your head buried in the sand. Just go Google police body cam trucker can't identify signs. They're all over the internet. But there are stories, and Bob, I hope you're not asking this. You very well might be, because you might be a liberal that just doesn't get any real information. But I hope you're not asking this. I actually had a conversation with a liberal the other day who didn't know anything about this subject either. So maybe it's just something you guys aren't exposed to. But are you not aware of, in Florida, an illegal immigrant making an illegal turn with an 18-wheeler and killing an entire family? I mean, there's a story that comes out every week. Just Google illegal immigrant trucker crash deaths. Go Google that, and you will see countless stories. Don't take my word for it. No one is ever supposed to take my word for anything. You can go back it up, and it's not hard. So don't be lazy, Bob. Just because you don't know about it doesn't mean it's not happening. And it shows just how isolated you are from truth if this is news to you and you're telling me to give one example or prove it, or illegal immigrants, can't get driver's licenses if they can't read signs. Oh, really? There's body cam footage of people that have been pulled over that have their commercial driver's license and are illegal immigrants, by the way, but they can't read the signs. California and Illinois have both, for quite some time, been issuing commercial CDL driver's licenses to illegal immigrants. And that's why 9,500 truckers have been taken off the road. My gosh. I'm not mad at you, Bob, for being ignorant, but don't come on this show and tell me to provide proof of something that's so easily accessible just because you're lazy and uninformed. Mostly Penny, imagine that food flavored with other foods and not chemicals tastes better. Wow, can't believe it. Yeah, the actual flavoring they're using is real food. Can you imagine that? It would taste better than something synthetic. Imagine that. Totally unbelievable if you want to know the truth, right? Okay. The real food, it tastes so good. Not as good as McDonald's, which is not real food, but I love it. I love a Big Mac. I do. Okay. Always got to get the Trump impression in every single show. Speaking of Trump and Maha, another big Maha victory. The White House says no more junk food on the SNAP program. No more junk food on the SNAP program. So you can't get those fudge rounds as part of your SNAP benefits anymore. It's got to actually be real food. Imagine that. So you got all these people who are abusing SNAP. There are some people that legitimately need it, but there are a lot of people that go and then sell their benefits. They get $500 a month. They use $250, and they sell the other $250 to somebody else for, $150 or something. It's been happening for a long time, the abuse of the SNAP program. But you have all these people that are eating absolute crap on the government dime. So we're basically, taxpayers are funding people's bad diet habits, making them sicker, getting the diabetes, and then getting on government health care. So it's a double whammy. We are basically funding their demise from a health standpoint, and then we have to fund their medical care because of the diabetes and the obesity. It's ridiculous. So I'm glad junk food is no longer eligible for SNAP, but that doesn't mean everybody's happy about it.
It's time for today's Triggered Liberal.
Yep, not everybody's happy that junk food is not available on SNAP.
What's the point of food stamps if it's just for real food? Kenmore believes
What's the point of food stamps if it's just for real food?
she and other SNAP recipients should be able to go into the grocery store and buy whatever they like.
That's not even cool. Like, why they do that?
That's not even cool. One more time. Can we play it one more time?
What's the point of food stamps if it's just for real food?
What's the point of food stamps if it's just for real food? That's not fair.
Kenmore believes she and other SNAP recipients should be able to go into the grocery store and buy whatever they like.
That's not even cool. Like, why they do that?
What's the point of food stamps if it's not for real food? If it's just for real food? What's the point of food stamps if it's just for real food? Yeah, it's food stamps, not junk snaps. I botched it. It's food stamps, not junk stamps. Junk stamps. Junk stamps. It's food stamps, not junk stamps. Why is that so hard to say? Junk stamps. Anyway, no more fudge rounds, no more junk food. You need to eat healthy. It's actual food. It's not junk stamps. It's food stamps.
It's time for today's Triggered Liberal.
It's like the fifth time's a charm, right? On that junk stamps, right? All right, that's going to do it for today's show. Thank you guys so much for being here. Please like this broadcast and share it. Repost it and repost it over on X by hearting the post and reposting. Follow me at Ike Wingate on X. If you want to support our mission to bring you this content, help us cover our hard costs by going to IkeReport.com, IkeReport.com, and you can give via Cash App or Venmo with $5, $10, $20 to help us just cover our costs. Thanks so much for being here. I'll see you Thursday morning on Newsmax, and we'll be back again before you know it. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. I was going to come up with a new, I was going to come up with a new sign off. I think it was something like, never lose faith, my friends, and don't live in fear, because fear is not a fruit of the Spirit. Long live Charlie Kirk. Have a great day.
Rate, subscribe, and leave a review. It's how we get the word out amidst the chaos. Thanks for listening to The Ike Wingate Show.